NoSo Connection. Welcome back to Ryan Gray's Draft Day, installment number 7. Talking very fun topic with a very cool crew and Mike Rossi. We are here to cover, what's the topic, Ryan? Tell us.
WWE/WWF managers. So pretty much if you were a manager for any length of time within the WWE, well, there you go, there's one right there, then you are eligible for this draft. I don't really think that anyone's kind of ineligible, but maybe be like less of a pick.
Did they have to have like an official manager's license to count for this? Did you check the record book and see who qualified?
Well, our good friend here, Katie, is the licenser or whatever, if that's a word.
The legal analyst.
The legal analyst. Yeah, the legal analyst,
Yep.
Katie. Katie, what's going on? Welcome to the North South.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I'm excited.
You actually picked this subject. Why'd you pick this subject?
You know, I don't know. I just thought that it was a good topic. There's a lot of great managers out there from all the years. So I think it's a good variety. And I think it really makes you think about who's at the very top and who's helped those wrestlers get to where they are. And it couldn't be because of the managers, I think. Part of it.
Yeah, it's cool. What I like best about the subject is you're like spraying across all of the eras of the WWE and WWF.
Mhm.
So one list could be very golden era heavy, right? One list could be ruthless, aggressive heavy, or modern day heavy. So I think that it's very unique and cool. And then you have old guys like Ric Flair and people like that who Oscar for Men on the Mission, right? Bob Backlund, Iron Sheik, guys like that wrestled and then became managers to stick around, Perfect Root, stuff like that. So let's not waste any more time. I don't think we have any more questions. And let's kind of randomize this thing and
For the audio, should we just do a quick intro of who's on here? Because I know we rely on the video here on YouTube. This is simulcast across our NoSo Connection partners. We have the video feed here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And on all podcast applications, audio-wise, we got Ryan Gray, Mike Rossi, myself, Katie Chandler here to bring the heat on this draft episode.
Yeah, I forget about the audio people. You know, fuck them, right? All right.
Know.
Katie, if you could have any pick, what would it be as I hit randomizer?
Like any number pick?
Well, you got the third pick, so that's that.
Well, now we
Again, every fucking draft Rossi's on, he's right before me. It goes Rossi, Ryan, Chandler, and Justin. In that order is the draft order. I feel like I can't get away from Mike Rossi in these things.
I have to just take my shirt off, I think. That pick's gone.
Yeah, Justin, I don't think you're going to get your guy there, buddy.
Unless I make a trade future draft considerations to Rossi for the next one.
Declined.
All right. Rossi, I think there's two people out there that you may pick. I'm curious who they are.
I had a 1 and I had a 2, and I wanted to get one of them. But my 1 is, I don't think, really surprising. I think he's somebody that really made managers in the WWE cool back in the mid to late 80s. And that would be Bobby the Brain Heenan.
You glitched. Was it Frenchie Martin, you said?
No. You know, between everything he did for Andre, really being the talking piece for him, and, you know, through all the Chronoso stuff we do, we've watched a lot of Heenan stuff, and he's just electric. And he just had this like larger than life personality as a manager, and really made guys that might not have had a chance on their own, like a Haku, really kind of get a little bit of luster on WWF TV. And I think that Heenan was by far and away the number 1 on this list.
By taking Bobby, you also get the coach, since he took over as
I like that.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, that makes it easier for me. Actually, second pick is most ideal because this gap is actually smaller than I think it is. Than you would think it is, in my opinion, anyways.
Right.
I think Heenan is the easy 101, but I think a very close second is Paul E. Dangerously, but not in the WWE. He is in the WWE. He is an advocate. He is a wise man. He is the leader of Extreme. It is Mr. Paul Heyman. I think he's an easy 1-2. Katie's going to be very happy with that pick because up next, I mean, might get her 1-1.
So
I love Bobby, but I feel like you could. I don't know. Does the last few years push Heyman ahead when you think of like the importance?
I thought about it because of the level of not only Roman but Brock before that.
Yeah, when you put Brock plus Roman, and he wasn't great with Punk, but Punk is
still
like
was
his
good.
third, you know? Yeah.
Right. Like he didn't need him, but I think it helped push along Punk as a heel for sure.
And the Alliance. Like he was the best part of that. So it's like that's
Leader of
4.
Extreme.
Like,
Plus, I mean, what he did for Michael McGillicuddy too. We can't not talk about that.
got him the IC title.
Come on, he made out with Ryback on TV almost. It was he's a game player. I'm huge on him. I think he's awesome. I think he is extremely valuable, but it's hard to give it not to Heenan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. Let's try to.
All right, Katie, if you had first pick, who would it have been?
Well, I honestly, I agree with both of you. I would have went with Heenan as my first pick because I think he is the GOAT. So Rossi, we finally agree on something.
That's gonna be it, though. I promise that'll be it.
From then on, though, the game has changed. But obviously, my pick is going to be none other than I'm quite biased. It's going to be Sherry Martel. I think she is one of, if not the greatest female manager, and she was a great professional wrestler as well. But she wasn't afraid to get in there with the guys, take some bumps. She elevated a lot of stars, DiBiase, Macho Man, Shawn Michaels. She made them look real good, and I think she really added an extra layer of just pizzazz to kind of like enhance their careers. So Sherry Martel, that is it. Scary Sherry, sensational Sherry. She's my girl. So going with her.
It's a great
Definitely
pick. I mean,
first round pick.
Yeah, Ed O'Ryan, like you've also watched a ton of 80s stuff like over the last few years, and I have for various like podcasts and other projects, and I think what really jumps out is how much her and Savage are a team versus like for years I thought she was just like a valet for him, but when you watch the act like play out, she's involved in every match. They work with this wonderful chemistry together where he'll tie up the ref, she's in, she's out, he's in, and it's pretty flawless. I actually think it's one of the more flawless like manager wrestler combos that ever existed, and she worked her way to my top 100 GWE when we did it just on that alone, watching that stuff.
Yeah.
What I like about Sherry is like she was with Macho Man, she was with Michaels, she was with DiBiase. Those were people like maybe Michaels because he was early in his career. Those are people that really didn't need a manager, but she still added to their act.
Yeah. She still complimented it quite well and didn't overshadow. And she knew that Shawn starting off, like, he needed it maybe starting off. And then, she really paved the way, I think.
Yeah, she's a rock star for sure.
All right. So much like a fantasy draft, sometimes you're sitting at the turn and value just drops right in your lap. I think all three were great picks. I think all three probably are fitting to be top 3, but to get Jimmy Hart at 4, I think is a steal of a pick, honestly. Like he's 1B to Bobby throughout the peak era, big feud with all his guys with Hogan, with the IC title division, with Savage, the tag division. I mean, he's all over the place. Even if you kind of take out his little crappy face run at the end, I mean, he still has like 85 to 92. He's a premier manager. I think when you think of that era, you think of kind of the two of them, Bobby and Jimmy, kind of. There's another one maybe it'll pop up later, but those are the two big ones you think of during that whole run. So to get him at 4, I think most old heads would probably have him top 2, like if they weren't thinking Heyman, he probably would have been number 2 for a lot of lists. But I know I won D'Amato's vote with the Jimmy Hart. That's all I care about.
That was a great pick. He was on my list. Yep.
And the megaphone, man. The megaphone was always so iconic too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sweet man as well. When we were walking through Nashville for SummerSlam weekend, D'Amato is like a diehard Jimmy Hart fan, just diehard. So we look over and he's sitting alone in this restaurant eating, and it's like empty. It's like a hotel. I don't know if it's like a hotel bar or something. And he got all nervous. He's like, "Oh no!" I'm like, "Come on, we're going in. Like, this is your chance." We went in. We're like, "Hey, Jimmy, come on over, baby." Like he called us over. We got a big picture with him in front of he's like, "Just come stand over here. This is a better place." So like he really took the time to like talk to us for a few minutes, even though he was eating. So just a super nice guy. So it was really cool to meet him.
He was ultimate hype man. He was such a good man.
Yeah, and he was great at WCW too. I know we're not factoring that into this, but he carried it over there. So, all right. So I'm gonna a little maybe unexpected pick here to kick off round 2, but it's someone I've really appreciated more and more as Chad and I are going through the Monday Night Wars, because I think she's just been fantastic in her role. That's China. Like Triple H has her 100% to thank for getting over. Like, she comes in immediately and is dominant. Everything, like, for someone that was green and a rookie, she's like awesome out of the gate, like throwing Marlena around, slamming dudes. And we're just kind of getting into the feud with Mankind, where she really ramps up, where she starts kicking the shit out of him. And she's a big part of his act all the way until he wins his first world title. And then obviously she siphons off and starts to wrestle more. But I feel like during that 2-year run, she's as dominant as like a modern era manager. There's not a lot of managers, Attitude and beyond. But I thought, and she's technically like a valet bodyguard, but I know we're counting that for these purposes. So I just think she's super historically underrated. Obviously a tragic story, deserves, like, it's embarrassing she's not in the Hall of Fame. We all know that story. Don't need to go down that route. But I just think if you watch those initial first few months, like right away, she's fantastic. To the point where WCW rolls out Jacqueline like right after it, and they're kind of doing the same thing. But yeah, I think she deserves this love. So I wanted to give her a shout out here and take her early.
She was perfect for that original DX. Like
yeah, that too. Right. Yeah,
fit like awesome. A glove.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
That's pretty good value. Maybe a little bit of a reach, but not really.
I didn't know she'd make it back to me, so I was like,
That's what I was thinking. She might not make it back, but
yeah.
My turn.
Your turn, Katie.
Right. Good. I'm glad this one wasn't taken. I'm gonna go with Paul Bearer.
That would have been my next pick.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the other one I debated.
You know, just such a great, amazing character manager. He had, the whole story was great. Him as a character, and he just had the longevity. Just, you know, growing up as a kid, he was just such a character that you just were like in awe of. And he had the urn and the prop, and just everything just kind of fit. And, you know, he evolved over time as a manager too, you know, moving on to not only The Undertaker, but with Kane and Mankind and stuff like that. So he's just an icon, I think. He's just great.
Yeah. He was the cog in a very, very important storyline in the late 90s, that is, starting the Attitude Era with Kane and The Undertaker. Really, he was the one that kind of pumped the juice into that, really. So more than a manager too, more obviously very important in the history of the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's driving the boat. Like, again, just kind of watching through that 96, 97, Mankind's the best act on their show. Like, everyone remembers Shawn in 96 having the great matches, but Mankind is consistently week to week the best act. And Paul Bearer is a big part of that, especially once he turns on Taker. Now we're getting into the secret stuff and Kane. And yeah, I mean, he's an integral piece of the roster. Bobby and Jimmy kind of fade as he's really ramping up. So he kind of carries him, and was one of the guys on the list. You know, I don't talk about yet. He'll probably come up, but the two of them kind of drive the managership from 92 to, 98 or whatever. So
yeah,
for sure.
Memorable character for sure.
Sweet.
Red Jacket is epic. All right. Camp Cornette.
Yeah, he's the other guy.
He's the guy that I got to take here. I think it's very good value, even though you wouldn't think he's the most important or at his best at the WWF at the time. His earlier work with the Midnight Express and Crockett and NWA and WCW, you would think more of him, but still, he has enough to draft him here in the second round. If it's Camp Cornette with Vader, Owen, and the Bulldog, if it's the Heavenly Bodies with Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard, and then even the silly stuff with the NWA rebuild in the late 90s with the new Midnight Express, Bart.
Well, does Yoko get over without him? I mean, then, probably not as much. Maybe I think he's still dominant enough where he would have been. But to get one that as being like the world champion, I think they needed Cornette.
He really solidified like the connection to the heel act of Yoko, right? Because it's kind of cheesy and corny a little bit with Fuji, right? But I think that Cornette added the microphone legitimacy of the act, in early '93. Really, and kind of because that's where he debuts, right? He comes in as the U.S. sympathizer to Yokozuna. That's his introduction too. So that on top of everything else I included, I think there's plenty of value there. Even though he would be known well before his work within the WWE, I still think it's a pretty good pick here in the late second round.
The Racket. You can't forget the Racket.
Yeah, that's the microphone for him. Is the Racket, right?
So the next two for me are easy.
I would take the Jackal, Rossi. He's here for you.
But I'm gonna decide who goes in the second round over the third out of respect. So I think about how Bobby Heenan was like the manager that really, like, when I was getting into wrestling as a kid, was the one that like I followed. But this one was right there, and she was such an integral part of WrestleMania 5, 7, 8, and that's going to be Miss Elizabeth. You look at, how
she was mine before she was yours, Rossi.
Let's how she pieced everything together in that Savage Hogan feud, how she was involved in like that reunion with Savage at 7, how important she was to the build of Flair and Savage at 8, and that's just talking about WrestleMania moments. She was such a, I don't know, she did so much by just being there. You know what I mean? She added to the Macho Man character. She became sympathetic while being a heel. It was kind of interesting how it all went together for her. But I think Miss Elizabeth is easily like one of my top 5s. So I'm very excited to get her at the 8th pick.
Yeah, everyone's first crush. Come on, let's be real.
Absolutely.
That WWF magazine where it looks like she's got nothing on because it cuts off here is like iconic. Right here.
Yeah, and like again, we didn't talk about the WCW stuff, but she played the similar role there for the NWO too. So
well, she's great when Savage goes heel and she's with him. Like she's really good there. She's great. She's fun with Flair when they're torturing Savage, but then when Savage comes back and she's with the NWO, like she's good with that too because she hadn't been like that before, so it was different.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we're going to lead off the 3rd round with someone who I just love watching his stuff now. I get a kick out of him when we do the Carnoso stuff too. And this is going to be the Reverend Slick. Loved his stuff with Kamala when he was a babyface trying to turn him into a man. Loved how he would cut promos, over-the-top promos with Boss Man, Hakeem, and just such entertaining TV at a time that he was able to show a personality that, really helped guys, get their footing as wrestlers and in the mainstream of WWF, because like a guy like Hakeem wasn't going to work without Slick. You know what I mean?
That was my next pick. This is what I'm talking about. I'm kind of just stealing my pick all along. So it works out fine because it makes the decision much easier for me. I'm going to stay in the S category. And I'm just going to go to I said Elizabeth was my first crush, right? Let's transition to our puberty here, right? And I'm going to go Sunny. Right? So if Miss Elizabeth was like, oh, she's a pretty lady, Sunny transitioned young Ryan into puberty. So say less. If it's
and this was just last year when he was revisiting all the footage. That's right.
Heavenly Bodies, Smoking Guns, LOD, the Godwins, even the manager, the tag team manager, Sunny, Sunny Days, say less.
Nothing beats my mom's reaction when the day she walked in my room and it had transitioned from like Larry Bird and like the Hollywood Blondes posters to the Sunny lingerie spread from Raw magazine across my wall. Like, I think she almost had a heart attack. I'm like, what the fuck?
Very, very fitting pick here. So, yep, Sunny it is. 3rd round. Chandler, on you.
Oh man, I don't like her as a person. I liked her as a manager, but that's who I was gonna go with there. So you yanked that.
Well, Sunny tends to make me yank it. What do you say?
You and everyone else. Well, back then.
Not anymore.
Back then, yeah.
I haven't paid many canteens lately, and I don't plan on it.
Oh, she looks rough now. Woof. All right.
I still regret not me. I had a chance in Philly at WrestleCon. There was no line, and I froze. It was like I was 16 again, and we even have it in. I even have it in. We have the same birthday. I was like, I have it in to go talk to her. Like, I could break the ice, but I froze up, wasted my chance.
What a vile pig.
God.
All right. Well, I think I have to switch gears here because you took my pick. So I'm going to have to go with one of my favorites from way back in the day, in very 80s, Captain Lou Albano.
Hey.
I just always loved him. I loved the act. I loved that he spoke for people and was real good on the mic, I thought, in my opinion, and kind of elevated people. He did the stuff with Cyndi Lauper. He just was huge in the 80s. And he just was, again, I like memorable characters. And he was just such a larger than life, memorable type of wrestler and manager. He was just, I don't know, he's just unforgettable. When I think back then, I think Lou Albano with the beard and the elastics and all that stuff. And Yeah, thought he was just great in the 80s.
He was the tag team manager before Sonny was. He managed all the great tag teams.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm glad you took him. I am not a little Albano fan. He's all right. I hated toward the end how he'd always glom on. He's like, oh, the manager of champions, like they'd win the belts and then, or they were about to win the belts and he'd suddenly become their manager. Like
With the Bulldogs, he did that.
Yeah,
sure.
like, I don't know. That always bothered me. But the value is so good, Katie. Like I probably would have taken him there just because he's
like so legendary. Yeah.
To get him that late, I mean, it's a steal. I think my next pick is going to be along those lines as well. To get classy Freddie Blassie on the third turnaround here. Again, legend of that era, kind of one of the three wise, one of the wise men managers of the late 70s, early 80s. A heat magnet, heat machine, been stabbed, had acid thrown on him and everything else, all the stories he talks about. And even into the 80s, right? Like super memorable at WrestleMania 1 with Sheik and Volkov. Like that's kind of one of his final big moments. But I think classy Freddie Blassie is the elite of that kind of heel side in the 70s and 80s.
Icon.
All right. Now, this is probably a little bit of a reach, but I don't know. Looking at the list, I don't feel like it's a total reach, but I'm going to take him because he's like my personal favorite all time. And I was actually worried a little bit, Rossi, when you started saying watching Cronoso stuff, like that this might be your guy, but I figured you guys aren't this far along yet, but I'm a massive Johnny Polo mark. I love him and the Quebecers is like my favorite threesome of all time. I got my Royal Rumble 94 poster up here. They're awesome at that show. They used to just make me laugh constantly watching as a kid during that. Like anytime they were on, they were just always laughing and shitting on people. Him and Vince on commentary on those superstars is just fantastic. Phenomenal. Him and Gorilla doing All American was super funny. And he's only there for like a year, but he's got so many great. One of my favorite is they do a rap before WrestleMania when they're going to fight Men on a Mission, and like him and the Quebecers are rapping about him, and it's tremendous. His little feud with Jannetty and 1-2-3 Kid was fun too. So I think he has a really good 1-year run right before he springboards into being Raven. And I like in ECW too, like Stevie Richards starts cosplaying as Johnny Polo to like tee up Raven coming in. He starts like pretending he's him. So I thought that was a cool little touch as well and nod to that. So plus it's supposedly during this time that he corrupts Shane McMahon. I don't know if that
I was just going to bring that up. I love the stories of Vince pulling him away because he would corrupt Shane.
And then of course later when they rehired, who the fuck hired Raven, right? Like way later, he still saw him at a talent meeting. He was all pissed off. So anyway, Johnny Polo's unfortunate.
Has anybody ever had like a crazier character to character change than Johnny Polo into Raven?
Scotty Flamingo, even like Scotty Flamingo to Johnny Polo to Raven.
Yeah,
he's awesome, dude. Scott Levy's the man. All right, Chandler, back on you. Fourth round we're in.
Well, I mean, again, this is a person.
You got to go with. I know who you got to take right now. You got to do it. You got to do it. You were her for Halloween.
Luna Vachon, yeah, man, very, very underrated women's wrestler, and turned manager, and she was just huge in the 90s. When was it WrestleMania 9 when her and Sherry swapped, and she had Sherry had Tatanka and she had Shawn Michaels, and then they had a feud and stuff. And with Bam Bam, there's just, I don't know. She didn't say much, but she, again, was a character, like just a huge, larger than life, scary, freaky character. When she
did do the voice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But when she spoke, you tuned in, you listened, or you were scared, and she again enhanced a lot of talent without even really saying too much.
I love how they met with Shawn at 9. I guess that's Tonka, right?
It was a weird combo, and I'm not sure where they were going with Sherry and Luna having the feud, and then it kind of like fizzled out after that. But I think had probably something to do with it on both sides.
Her and Bigelow is a great pairing, though. Like I don't know if two people ever made more for each other, like on that run. Like they just looked like they went together. It was a perfect pairing.
For sure. Isn't she married to Gangrel too, or was?
She was, yeah. I don't know that they still are. I don't think they still are.
All right. Third round, or
all right.
Fourth pick on me. I talked earlier about Sonny starting my journey through manhood. And this second pick here kind of put a staple on it, and that is Sable. If Sonny got me into the Attitude Era, Sable got me through the Attitude Era and puberty. her being a manager started at
I didn't realize
WrestleMania
this was going to be a therapy session for you. Your mommy issues.
So her at WrestleMania 12 getting introduced as a manager with Triple H, and then transitioning to her husband, Mark Merrow, and then just blowing up and taking over and becoming the biggest, one of the bigger stars in the Attitude Era. Says a lot. I even like her wonky work in 2003 and 2004, returning on SmackDown with Vince as his little side piece or whatever. So, yeah, I think she's more of a star than like an actual manager, but her as a manager got her to that point for sure. So, yeah, Sable, star power galore. And are you guys ready to grind? That was an epic line.
Let me see. You're gonna do the grind.
She would just randomly dance like out of nowhere, and it was always hilarious.
Yep. I figured it out real quick when I saw Sable.
And like, what was would Mark Merrow ever been on WWF TV without her? You know what I mean? Like, it never would have worked.
I love the story, and I love the story too, where she's back in 2003 and she's still with Mark, but they're on the rocks or whatever. Mark Merrow finds out that she's seeing someone in the locker room, and then he finds out that it's Brock Lesnar, and he's just like, "All right, that's what I kind of came to Jesus, and I just let it be."
Not worth it at that point.
It's not worth me going down that road. It was a good marriage. It was a good run. She's yours.
Smart move.
All right, so I've got 4 and 5 here, which honestly, one of them I almost took on the last run through. Mostly because, and I told this story when we were building the biggest WrestleMania stars, about how when I was in college, I was out on wrestling for a while. It just like, I didn't live with people that were into it, so I just kind of dropped out. And then when I came back in, what hooked me back in was New Year's Revolution 2006, when Edge cashed in. And I think what made that Edge character work was Lita. And I think that it got him to a different level by having her pretty much with her tits out on TV every week. But she played such a good heel to that Edge character. And then you go back to her time in Team Extreme, and she was like the perfect third in the Hardy group. And, funny, she's the third in a group later on in life too. But as it goes into, Lita's just presence on TV, without even taking her wrestling into account, which obviously had its own level, her manager work was awesome. And she was somebody that I was a big fan of when I transitioned back into wrestling in 2006. And who else had a live sex celebration but her?
Right.
And my 5th pick, this is one that I'm taking because I was going to take Sable, but obviously Ryan ganked it. This is somebody else going back to when I was a kid. Manager of Demolition, really helped with just insane promos, over the top with the face paint, and just a legendary like larger than life figure as a manager.
Aaron Von Rasch.
Mr. Fuji. So love the guy. He was one that I was legitimately sad when he died, even though he was like 80 something. But he was somebody that, whether it was with Yokozuna, Morocco, and then but Demolition was where I really remember him as a kid. I loved him. So Mr. Fuji it is.
He's like Albano to me. Like he's good value. You have to take him. I'm glad you did because I didn't want to have to take him. But I think cage fight wise, I just think he's a terrible manager. Like his decision making is abysmal. When he sells out
good salt.
He sells out Demolition at their champions to go with the non-championship team. He puts Yokozuna, accepts, he's exhausted. This fat man is exhausted, and he accepts a match against the greatest wrestler of all time on no notice at WrestleMania, and he loses the title to Hogan. He needs Cornette to come bail him out to manage a world champion with Yoko. I just think he's an awful decision maker. He always fucks up if there's assault in the wrong way. I don't know. What did he ever accomplish? Terrible choice. I'm out on Fuji.
He has great ribs, by the way. The feeding the dead dog to on Thanksgiving.
I'm sure he's
boys. It's a great rib.
Legendary person.
I'm not gonna lie. I mostly go with him because I look at that. I'm trying to build a list that gets voted on. So,
well, that's the problem. No, you're not gonna win. You're pandering. You're not gonna win. I do like the little face Fuji at the end, though. He finally gets cheered when he's with Yoko, WrestleMania 12 or whatever.
I just loved his promos when you could barely understand what the hell he was saying.
Because he didn't even know what he was saying.
Right, exactly. He was important to the Demolition. It was weird. Why was this guy with these two dominatrix guys? But it worked out, I feel like.
He was the pimp.
Right.
He was the real pimp.
I'm kind of with Justin. I'm glad you picked him, so I didn't have to.
All right. Thinking about it too.
All right. So what hot blonde is out there left for me to pick?
There's a few.
I'm going to go with a dirty blonde or a brunette. And I'm going to go with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Oh God, he's the worst manager than Fuji.
Nah, $1 Million Corporation.
Should have taken
DiBiase.
Virgil.
Virgil is more successful than DiBiase as a manager.
Nah, he down time.
Oh,
He
my Lord.
rode the new gen mid card to success.
Was this
success.
because of what he did for Cameron Grimes? Is that why you're picking him?
I was gonna say I get the Cameron Grimes bump too. I get the Ted Jr. bump as well.
Yeah, bump to jail.
Out of wrestling.
Overall, it's a downtime in the company. He's
Bret
there
Hart.
against LT at WrestleMania 11. A fun time for me. Oh, I think he's totally
service
fine and
Yeah,
acceptable.
I mean, whatever, right?
Moving
He's just kind of like, I don't know. Everyone who like gets rid of him does better after. Sid, Austin, like as soon as they shed him, they improved. As soon as he was out of the way.
Nah,
Godfather.
come on. Volkov was at his peak with him. Bundy, Sid, come on, say less. Ted DiBiase, $1 Million
You
Corporation.
should
Let's
say
go.
less permanently on these.
All right, let's go. Chandler, you're up.
All right. Well, I don't have to worry about that one.
You shouldn't have either way, even if he was there.
All right. So who was I had on this list? I was really not too pleased, but trying to think who I got.
Sweet Sapphire is still there. If you want to stick with the hot chicks.
Mm, you know, I'm gonna go with Paul Ellering, only based on the fact that he managed LOD and they were one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and that's really all that I can respect him for. And but I thought
The
he was
DOA run.
Yeah, it's all right with the
He's-
DOA.
He still gets paid and currently on TV.
Yeah, he's the Final Testament with Karrion Kross and AOP. Still getting those checks,
He
bro.
like paints his face now too. It's fucked up.
yeah.
And you get Rocco, the little doll that goes with him.
I mean, it was-
Rocco might be a good standalone pick.
yeah,
But you get
I
the
don't know.
Wall Street Journal every day and whatnot. I think it's a good pick.
Would you
Good
pick?
promo.
Would you guys pick Paul Ellering over Ted DiBiase?
Yeah.
I would. I think I would. And I mean, and I'm an NXT mark too. I mean, I feel like he did a lot for AOP too. He like legitimized them, and they had a really good. As much as they kind of suck now, their NXT run ruled, and Ellering was very helpful with that.
Yeah, I feel like he
The
did.
Undertaker, Ted DiBiase found the second Undertaker, man. Say less.
That's true. You forget about the Undertaker thing.
Yeah, that is
He was
true.
given so much shit and he made it work to an extent.
He did not make it work. He just made it worse. I think
Nah, he made it work to an extent. All right, Justin, on you, buddy. So,
All right.
Justin, 2 more picks and then you're in the last round.
All right. This is it. Yeah, 2 more.
This
and
is
I'm out.
it. 2 more picks.
Okay. This guy I'm going to take next only has a year managerial run for intents and purposes. He had a little blip later, but I do think it's maybe the single greatest year of an act in WWF history. So I'm going to go with Mr. Perfect, who was with Ric Flair during his amazing
Him.
19. You could do the pen toss. I don't have a pen if you want to do it for me, but amazing in 1992, 91 into 92. Just amazing. Like you mentioned it earlier, Ryan, like managers with people that didn't need people to talk, but it works perfectly. This is another one. Like Ric Flair does not need an effing manager, right, in any world, but Perfect is just like such a amazing, binary partner for him. Them flipping out after winning the Rumble, him losing his shit at WrestleMania 8, and as a diehard connoisseur of primetime wrestling growing up, like him and Bobby at that round table. I know it doesn't count as managerial stuff, but he's a manager during that time, and they were pushing all the heel acts as a duo, and they were just amazing in those round tables. SummerSlam 92 is like a great angle where they mess with Warrior and Savage, and he's a big part of that. And then the turn is really good too when he dumps the water on Bobby and fused with Flair. So I think it's an amazing 1 year run for a guy that just has the 1 year. Again, he's got that blip later with like Mero and Hunter before he leaves, but it's barely counts.
Well, but he pushed Triple H. Triple H won the IC belt with
he helps him win that one. So yeah, you get that. But the Flair stuff is so good. All right. So I'm a little torn on my last one because I do think there's one really good manager on here. I'm not going to pick that person though. I'm going to go with. I'm not going to pander like Rossi to the vote. So I'm going to go with a personal favorite. And again, not a manager for long, but he has 2 little stints. And I'm picking him mainly for the inane stuff he would say and the joy he brought me during the times he would say it. And that's Mr. Bob Backlund during his time with the Sultan, just completely unhinged, talking with I can't hear you with my glasses on. Like, what does that even mean? Eating marijuana. And then you get that little run later as well with Angle in 2000 where he's managing him, and Angle puts him in the chicken wing and turns on him because he signed him up for that match at WrestleMania where he had to defend both titles, and he gets all pissed at him. So I just think he's an amazing force during a very, very short run, but he's the highlight of the Sultan nonsense. So I'm going to take Backlund, even though I think there is one manager better on the board, but I love him too much. He's like a Johnny Polo for me. I had to get those 2.
I thought you were going to go with Big O.
Oh yeah. No, Oscar all the way or whatever. Always Oscar. But no. Maybe if there's a 7th round, we'd take him.
That's the honorable mention. Okay.
Oscar,
right.
no matter
Last round, Chandler.
So my last one. All right. Well, so this is a newer manager. I'm not going old school, but I want to say that I was always impressed with her role as a manager, and that's Lana. I thought Lana was great as manager. She was amazing on the mic. She always had, she was with Rusev, who didn't speak much, so she did all the speaking for him, and she was just great on the mic. Knew how to cut a promo. Knew how to draw heat. The whole, Russian accent, everything like that. She really took to that role, and I thought she was one of the greatest of the more recents, as manager. She really, really came to that role.
She was on my short list to close the draft. I'm not going to lie. I mean, why I think she's good in this spot is she got Rusev to a level in the main roster that he had fucking no chance at getting to without her.
Yeah.
And I mean, he went from being a guy that, they didn't really even know how to dress him when he was coming up from NXT and developmental. And next thing you know, he's got this smoke show that's like talking for him, telling him to crush. She really just made that character get over, in my opinion. And fast forward a year or two, and he's riding a fucking tank to WrestleMania to wrestle John Cena. Like, you got to give her a bone for that.
Absolutely. And that's what you need as a manager. You need that little extra ingredient, to add to kind of like enhance the spice of these people that have great talent, but like they're lost, they need a little something. And she was that something.
Hey, what's Lana spelled backwards? She's over with me, buddy. All right. There's a lot of like I want to make this like a goofy pick, but I don't know. There's so many like good names out there, like Abraham Washington.
You want to continue with Lana backwards? Sweet Sapphire.
You can take Tony. You can take Tony Atlas.
In Tony Atlas, in Rico, and like even Rude would be a fun pick. Being introduced with DX and whatnot. But I'm gonna go with the goofiest of them all, and I think he's awesome in this role. And I'm gonna go with the roadie, Jesse James, with My Baby Tonight. I think that him and Jeff Jarrett in 95 is just fantastic together. And then he would take this roadie character and make it the Road Dogg and go on to great success in the Attitude Era. So I think his charisma magnifies here in this role. And I don't know, I just couldn't pass him up in the last round. The roadie's my last pick with My Baby Tonight.
Yes, that was a solid year.
Spend my days working hard on the road.
Just good TV, like with him. Like that was such a goofy. Like you're right, it was very goofy, but he delivered.
Well, it's crazy. It's only like 6 months.
Yeah, and then he quits with Jarrett as they walk out on a dispute over the IC belt or whatever, and it's like, why did I quit? What an idiot!
Right.
All right, so we're gonna close this draft. I'm looking at like 3 or 4 different names right now. And I'm struggling to figure out which one I want to go with. Harvey Wimpleman was somebody that I was strongly considering. But, I want to have a little bit more fun, add another chick to this list. I'm going to go with somebody again, I think was such a huge member of getting, helping the husband at the time get over. And that would be Marlena. I think that's just like, it's just an interesting character that you came in and she was with Goldust, who was, homosexual character at times, but he still had the wife in the corner. It was kind of an interesting dynamic, and it all just really worked for that entire package. And I think Marlena worked really well as an on-screen. Yeah, exactly. So, and all
I mean, she's good with the Hardys as well. Like you get that whole thing, the tit and all that.
And she was honestly like, really cool to meet too. Like she was a sweetheart the couple times I've talked to her at WrestleCon. So she kind of added value for me there,
Yeah, she's really good in that Pillman role with like the cucking or whatever, and right before he passes away in late '97. So yeah,
pretty dynamic. She was able to do a lot of different roles. I mean, to be Marlena and then transition that into being a chick that's not completely dressed in gold head to toe, that's not easy. She made it work.
All right, so I wrote down a bunch of names here that we really could have added another person. These would have been.
I think there's a real big one.
Draft. What?
The one I was going to take is Vicky Guerrero. Oh, like I think
that was my 1B on that last choice there.
Yeah, that's what I almost took over Backlund. I mean, tremendous heat magnet. Like probably besides Heyman, the other big manager of like the 2000s into 2010s.
Yeah.
She really made you hate not only her but whoever she was managing.
Right.
Edge, Dolph, like everyone she was with. Like it just worked really well.
My only concern with taking her was was the hatred like true heel heat or was it go away heat?
No, I think it was real heat.
I liked her, but I feel like at times it was kind of tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, by the end, maybe.
It got long, but it's real heat. I thought it was real heat, but then I thought, I don't know. At times, it definitely was like enough of fucking Vicky Guerrero.
I think she should have probably been in this draft based on some of the people we took. Again, I'm fine taking.
I almost did it. I almost closed with her, but I couldn't let Marlena go. But that would have been that was who I was in the air with.
I could pick one off each of our rosters that she easily could have been picked off of for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I had Clarence Mason, Deborah, Diesel would have been fun. Melina kind of should have been.
Melina was also after we were talking about Lana. I was thinking about how she had the coolest manager's entrance of everybody ever, right?
And then really someone who was super fun was Nydia. That would have totally been acceptable. Yeah, baby, Jamie Noble and the West Virginia Rednecks or whatever. P.S. Hayes would have been fun. I thought Rico was fantastic. Flair was great in the role. And then the Jackal would have been fun just because.
I think Maurice too really added to the Miz. When people were sick of the Miz, they brought her in as the real life wife, and it worked
too as well in that same vein.
Well, like this list we had Vince, and none of us took him, but I don't think we didn't not take him because of what's going on. But I feel like he wasn't really a manager; he was just kind of like an evil presence. Evil.
Honestly, even Stephanie McMahon, I feel like she was
stuck with Jericho.
Yeah, she was the manager of so many high-profile moments in wrestling.
Yeah. That's I was on my maybe list to throw out there.
Yeah, an old head, maybe Arnold Skolin, but he was kind of boring.
Kind of sucked. I think Grand Wizard is like the big name of like the old ones that we didn't take. But
I think an old Hillbilly Jim.
Yeah.
He fit with the Godwins, but the juniors are terrible. No, the cousin juniors and the hillbillies.
Yeah,
Jim was okay, but the other hillbillies, I'm out.
I think I should get Iron Sheik as the combo with Backlund because they were kind of like one person during that run with Sultan, so that amps it up.
And like some names that you want to think about that like had probably bigger roles outside of WWE were like I think like Maria Kanellis, like when they were in New Japan, she was her ass was the most over thing on the internet. You know what I mean? And I mean there's a few of them that are there. I mean, every woman like AJ Lee at times managed, and she played such a major role in like the Bryan and Punk shit back in the day.
If you open it up to other promotions, like JJ Dillon for sure would have been pretty high on the list for the time with the Horsemen. And
honestly, the one name that I would take if this was every promotion that would definitely have been on my list was Bill Alfonso.
Yeah.
I was like trying to figure out if I could sneak him in, but it wasn't enough in actual.
He refereed in the WWF. That's it.
Yep. Well, did he work any of WWE ECW at all?
He might have brought Sabu and Rhino to the ring in One Night Stand.
One Night Stand, but he wasn't in the reboot.
Wasn't in the
just one
reboot at all.
He was at One Night Stand, but not.
And another one,
reboot.
if we open up the WCW, it would be Teddy Long, probably.
Teddy
Oh
Long.
no, he's fucking maybe early Teddy. Watching.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
Teddy
very early Teddy. Like
96 Teddy will sour you on his entire everything. He's awful.
Yeah,
but I
the
like
early
him in
stages, he was
03, like with Thuggin' and Buggin'. Like that's pretty good with Mark Henry and Roddy Mack.
Keebler too, again, would be, and if WCW was involved, she would definitely be on the list.
Yeah.
All right, Rossi, for the audio listeners, run down your list. One from first time put down.
So Bobby Heenan was the 1-1, and then Miss Elizabeth, the Reverend Slick, Lita, Mr. Fuji, and Marlena.
I had second pick, first round, Paul Heyman, then Jim Cornette, Sonny, Sable, $1 Million Man, and the Roadie. Chandler, who'd you have?
If you want managers that didn't do anything for the people that they managed, Ryan's list is yours. Besides
Yeah, but
Heyman.
they did a lot for me. They did a lot.
Heyman. None of them added any value to anyone they managed. So
I mean, Sonny, yeah, he had a few good ones, but the Roadie
I
just
started off hot, and then I just got in my own bag.
yeah. Then you went with your personal faves. All right. So I mean, mine's a bunch of personal faves as well. So I'm not one to talk. So I got sensational Sherry Martel. She was my number 1. Then I went with Paul Bear. Number 3 was Captain Lou Albano. Number 4 was Luna Vachon. 5 was Paul Ellering, and 6 was Lana.
all right. And the winning list is first pick Jimmy Mouth of South Heart.
Yeah, baby.
China, Classy Freddie Blassie, Johnny Polo, Mr. Perfect, and Bob Backlund. So there you go.
Thank you for the perfect pick. I wanted that one. I was like,
absolutely perfect. Just like this draft was. I want to thank everyone who's watched, listened, and of course all the panel here who participated. Ryan will be back in a couple weeks with an all new draft. Till then, keep on drafting. We'll go Jimmy Hart. We'll keep on dancing. That's us. We're out.
Gentries.